Traditionally, the Japanese automakers have been conservative about rolling out new vehicles. They really do stick to their core product lineup, but over the last 24 months or so, we've been treated with a large number of new vehicles from Toyota, this being one of the biggest that they now offer. This is a 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander Platinum Hybrid Max all-wheel drive. Now we're going to be going over everything about this vehicle, exterior, interior features, and reasons why you would want to consider this vehicle, as well as how it compares to the regular Highlander that we drove a couple years ago, as well as how it compares to the Sequoia, as this fits right in the middle of those two. But let's talk about the basics when it comes to this three-row mid-size crossover. Pricing starts at about $65,000 Canadian as configured, closer to $67,500. In the US, this is about $59,800. Now it comes with a 2.4-liter four-cylinder hybrid motor with an electric motor in the rear. So you've got two electric motors that can power the wheels, both front and back. So you've got all-wheel drive fully electric, as well as that 2.4-liter four-cylinder, which not only drives the wheels, but can also charge the battery. Total system output is 362 horsepower, 339 pound-feet of torque, and has a 6-speed direct shift automatic transmission. Now this also can tow 5,000 pounds, so if you are buying this as a hybrid vehicle, and a large hybrid vehicle at that, you still have excellent towing capabilities for this size segment. Now Toyota says that this vehicle is obviously designed for families, but they say it has a adult, comfortable third row. I'm going to be testing that out. Yes, I will get into the third row and see really if it is adult friendly or not. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's see how this compares in terms of size to something like the Highlander and the Sequoia. Well, if you're going for the Grand Highlander, compared to the Highlander, it has a 4-inch longer wheelbase. It is about 4 inches longer overall and about 2 inches wider. Now you compare that to the Sequoia, which is a body-on-frame pickup truck platform. That vehicle is quite a bit larger, 6 inches longer wheelbase, 7 inches longer overall, and about 1.3 inches wider. So if you need the biggest vehicle that Toyota currently manufactures for civilian use, you'll want to go up with the Sequoia. But if you need a little bit more space than you get on the Highlander, then this is the way to go. This is going to be competing with things like the Kia Telluride, Hyundai Palisade, the new GMC Acadia that's going to be coming out. I think these are all going to be vehicles that you will be cross-shopping when it comes to this, because it is quite large. But we're going to go around the exterior, talk about the features and tech, jump on the inside, and then take it on the road to see if the 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander is the vehicle for you. Well, there's no doubt that the Grand Highlander has some street presence. I mean, this is a very large vehicle compared to myself. You can see it's got a very large stance. It's actually quite tall. I'm 6 foot tall, so you can see that it is a big vehicle. Now, there's a lot to go on with this. Starting with the front end, we've got the trapezoidal hammerhead front grille, which kind of reminiscent of the Lexus design language. Full LED headlights, 360-degree cameras, parking sensors on the front and the back, all the usual stuff that you would expect to find on a fully loaded vehicle such as this. And this is the Platinum. This is the top end trim here in Canada. But safety-wise, there's quite a bit going on with it. This comes with the current generation Toyota Safety Sense system, which is standard across the board for the Grand Highlander. You're getting things like pre-collision with pedestrian detection, lane departure alert with steering, full speed range active cruise control, lane trace, road sign assist, as well as automatic high beams, and something that Toyota calls proactive driving assist. Now, what they say is it essentially provides gentle braking into curves, as well as supporting tasks such as distance control. So for example, if I'm coming to a vehicle in front of me, the vehicle will start to slow down for me, just like it would if you had a brake regen mode on a electrified vehicle. Because this is a hybrid, that would help to charge the battery. So not only is the vehicle kind of driving a little bit for me, it's also charging the battery, which I think works really well. So the tech itself works. I've been testing it over the course of the week, and I can tell you that once you get used to it, you will like it. I have no issues with that. So let's go around to the side and see what's going on there. So at the side profile here, we can just see how tall this vehicle really is compared to me. Again, I'm 6 foot tall, so use that as a frame of reference. But the side profile is quite handsome, very similar to obviously the current design language at Toyota, bringing in some of those regular Highlander elements to it. But overall, looks like a very handsome, muscular vehicle. A couple features here to note: the entryway into the gas cap here, you have to push a button. I find that's pretty normal on Japanese vehicles. It's not part of the central locking system. Some people might like that, some people might not, but just to know. With the Platinum trim, we're getting 20-inch alloy rims, and these have Bridgestone Blizzak winter tires. No winter testing this week, unfortunately. It's almost like spring here, but that's fine. And then all 4 doors plus the rear liftgate have keyless entry. So all I have to do is put my hand in the door and I can tap it to lock it. Don't usually find that on the second row. It's kind of hit or miss these days. Nice to have it on all 4 doors. But essentially the side profile is quite muscular, as I said. Good design language overall. You've got the chrome on the top for the roof rail, as well as the chrome along the bottom. And that's about it. Everything else is either body colored or you've got the plastic unpainted cladding. Gives it a little bit more of an off-roady look. Obviously, if you want a little bit more luxury, you'll have to go up to a Lexus. But aside from that, I think it works out pretty darn well. All right, we've made it to the back of the Grand Highlander here. Again, you can see the design language continues being a squared off, boxy vehicle. I love it. Overall, kind of similar design language, I'd say, to the regular Highlander that we drove a little while ago. But overall, I mean, you can tell that this is a bigger vehicle. I've had a lot of people actually checking it out as I've been driving around, which doesn't usually happen with crossovers and SUVs, but I think just because it's new, which you don't usually get to say about Japanese brands, this being a brand new vehicle that's never existed before, people are quite interested in it. So again, there is a lock feature, so you can either open up the trunk with the button or you can lock the vehicle's central locking system back here. You've also got the backup camera and a digital rear view mirror, and it's actually hidden here behind the glass. Now this is the first time I've seen it like this. Usually there's a separate camera on the exterior, usually beside the backup camera, sometimes in the shark fin up at the top, depending on which brand. But for the most part, they're always outside. One of the major complaints people have is in winter, it can get gunked up. So the solution was to put washer spray, its own dedicated nozzle to be able to clear it off. And for the most part, that works. Toyota's going with a slightly different approach, putting it in the car itself. So it sits behind the glass. And I find that there's some trade-offs. Obviously, you don't have to worry about things like it getting gunked up or damaged or anything like that because it is behind the glass here. However, you do lose a little bit because of that. The window is tinted, so it's just a little bit darker seeing out of there. There's a little bit of a reflection at night. I find that the nighttime driving isn't quite as good as it is on other vehicles. And then, you know, even though the wipers do work, you still have to wipe it off. And if it doesn't quite get all the dirt off because it's right at the top of where that wiper blade is, it might still be kind of gunked up. So, I mean, there's trade-offs. It works really well. It's a nice approach, and I'm glad to see that Toyota is doing something a little different than the rest of the manufacturers. Now, the other feature that we get here on the top end trim, we do have a kick feature. So you give the car a little kick, it'll open up the lift gate. You would kind of expect that again at this price point. Toyota says that the rear here with the third row up can fit 7 carry-on luggage bags. Now, I'm going to be using this to go to the airport this week, but I don't have 7 bags, so I could definitely see that fitting. It is a pretty decent size for a 3-row vehicle with all 3 rows up. You can put the seats down. You can see we've got the covers on the back here, the mud covers to be able to keep the car clean. Those are stuck to the back of the seats, which is nice. So overall, you've got some controls there. There's a 12-volt outlet in the back, so if you want to plug things in, no problems. And then there is a privacy cover underneath the little parcel shelf. So if you do want to put the seats down and then keep your stuff kind of safe from prying eyes, you've got those features too. But let's jump into the Grand Highlander now, talk about the 3rd row, 2nd row, and then the front, and then we'll take it on a road test and see how the 2024 Grand Highlander is on the road. All right, here it goes. All right, well, I'm deciding whether or not I'm going to keep the seating portion in there. I probably will, so apologies for anybody who saw anything they shouldn't, but I can't fit, right? Like, I'm 6 foot, I'm not fitting back here. So yeah, I mean, technically, adults can be smaller than me. They're going to have to be the ones that fit back here. So let's talk about the back. Despite me being kind of cramped back here, Toyota did want to make sure that whoever is sitting back here does have some stuff going on. So we do have 2 USB outlets, 2 USB-C, one on either side here for the passengers. And then we've got like a triple cup holder. They say that you can fit 2 cups and a larger water bottle style device. So you've got quite a bit of storage there, but that's about it. We do have a couple air vents in the top, plus the LED lighting, and then we do have windows. They are a pretty decent size overall, but I have to say that I do fit with my length, at least. You know, the seat here collapsed back into a good position, and there's still enough room up there that, again, if even an adult were sitting there, I think we'd be fine. Plus, if I were driving, the seat's in my driving position. So, you know, if you're an average size adult, you might fit back here a little bit better, but at 6 feet, it's just not cutting it for me. So I do understand that, you know, it's one of the things, right? You want to go up to something like the Sequoia, you will have a little bit more room back here. But, again, if you're buying this vehicle, if you're in a situation like myself where I only have 3 people in here at any given time, but I sometimes might have 2 extra adults, then it's great. My daughter, who's 10, can sit back here. There's no problems. You can have 4 adults in the front 2 rows, and you're good to go. So it is a 7-passenger vehicle. Just the people who are going to be sitting back here need to be a little bit smaller, especially smaller than myself. But to be able to get out, it's no problem. You just flick that up. You can put the seat out of the way, and then you've got a good amount of room to get out. I mean, it wasn't too hard for me to get in. Getting out is going to be a little bit different just because, for me, it's not super comfortable. But 3rd row does exist. Let's jump into the 2nd row, though, and talk about what's going on there. All right, let's talk about the 2nd row of seats here. This is kind of where most people, I think, are going to be sitting, depending on how you're buying this vehicle and why, but this is pretty good. I mean, I'm seated behind my driver profile. I do fit. Obviously, I'm just tilted a little bit towards the camera here, so I'm facing you a little bit more, but if I were to sit properly, I would be comfortable, and the seats themselves are quite comfortable. Mix of leather and ultra suede. Feels very nice. Toyota calls this color Portobello, which I really do like. Plus with the black throughout the rest of the vehicle, looks quite good. So overall space back here is good. Heated and ventilated seats. Cadillac Escalade does not have that. We have tri-zone automatic climate control, and then again some USB-C ports. There are 7 USB-C ports in this vehicle, plus 13 cup holders. So there's 2 cup holders here, plus what Toyota says are like tablet trays. Got a little bit of storage. In the side door cards, there's a little bit more storage, as well as places to put water bottles. So a good amount of storage overall. I mean, this really is the ultimate road trip vehicle, and I can see that Toyota has taken time and care to think about how families are going to be using a vehicle like this. What is the need behind having a 3-row Highlander that can fit 7 passengers comfortably? They've really thought about why, right? It's not just let's build a vehicle, let's figure out how it's going to be used in ways that make sense for real life. So overall, very good. My daughter's comfortable back here when she's seated back here. Good amount of headspace as well. Again, if I'm seated properly, I've got a little bit of extra headroom up there, plus the panoramic sunroof is nice to have. You can close it from the front, plus you have the side shades, window shades here on either door. So if you want to have a little bit more privacy, you've got those options as well. But I want to jump into the front seat, talk about the features up there, and then we will take it on the road to see everything else about the 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander. All right, we're in the most important seat now of the Toyota Grand Highlander, the driver's seat. This is where all the magic happens, and we've got quite a bit going on here at the Platinum trim. Again, we've got this Portobello interior, which I think is quite nice. Most of the materials are kind of hard touch. The door cards, top of the dashboard, and even the dash that kind of looks like leather, still a little bit hard, but for the most part, it is very comfortable. And the seats themselves are excellent, so I do like those. We've got plenty of buttons, and that's what I always like about the Japanese brands. They really do, again, think about how they want to have their vehicle set up, and it's not just about, putting everything into the infotainment. They've never really been that strong with technology, so buttons, we've got tons of them. HVAC controls, they're all physical buttons. We've got a button for the camera, which works pretty well. We've got all of our drive modes. With this vehicle having the Hybrid Max, we've got a number of different drive modes, including Eco, Sport, Normal, which comes standard on all the Grand Highlanders. But we also have mud and sand, rock and dirt, as well as a snow mode. Unfortunately, I can't test it this week. It's just not that bad of weather. We've been keeping it actually in Eco mode, which we'll talk about on our road test. But again, everything's laid out where I would expect it to be. Just like the second row, we've got heated and ventilated front seats. We've got a heated steering wheel. We've got a AC 120 volt, plus this has a 1500 watt inverter in it, so you can power a lot of devices with it, which is great having all of these USB ports. And actually, speaking of the USB ports, on the passenger side, we've got this little cubby above the glove box with a USB-C as well as a storage tray, so you can actually put your phone in there and or whatever devices you might have and charge everything in there, keep all the wiring in there, keep it all nice and tight. Moving to the center console, we've got a wireless phone charger. It's Qi compatible. I just find that because it's basically flat plastic, the phone doesn't stay there. So if you're driving straight and you really don't turn, no problems. But if you take a turn, phone, at least for me, flies out. But there are some storage areas in there. You've got 2 cup holders, plus what Toyota again says is a large area to be able to put a large water bottle. You've got a center console tray that opens up. There's a ton of space in this storage area here in the armrest. And again, the way that Toyota is designed is they've kept the armrests separate, so you can still have your arms there and be able to open it up and get whatever's inside. So smart ideas there. There's a little tray to be able to put things like coins just to the left of the steering area. Like, everything just makes sense. They've really put some thought and care into this vehicle. We have two 12.3-inch screens, the infotainment system, as well as the digital cockpit. Again, work great. There's some customization with the digital cockpit and a couple options that you can switch between to be able to see different views. And then the map itself works pretty well. It's not the most advanced infotainment system. It is certainly better than previous generations of Toyota's infotainment, but there's nothing really to be too excited about. Wireless Apple CarPlay worked great, so you can set that up and more or less forget about it, but that's through there. We have the digital rear view camera, which I mentioned. It works well, but just a slightly different implementation of how we've seen before. And then the final thing I'll talk about before we hit the road here is what Toyota calls S-Flow. So we like to see that on hybrid vehicles, especially plug-ins or electrics. Essentially, when I push that button, it says the directed air is only going to the occupied front seats. So that means that the passenger here, the airflow is not going to go there because there isn't anybody sitting there. So it'll turn off the rear seats, and it does work pretty well. When my daughter gets into the back, it seems to turn on the system automatically. If my wife gets into the passenger seat there, it'll start directing the airflow, so you almost don't have to think about it. Although I have had to physically turn on the rear seats a couple times. So still a little bit hit or miss, but for me, driving around on my own most of the time, I keep that on. So for the most part, the airflow is just flowing towards me, saving a little bit of fuel in the process, because obviously that's the key when it comes to a hybrid vehicle, especially a large hybrid vehicle like this. You really do want to save as much fuel as possible. But that's where we're going to hit the road. We'll talk about our fuel economy and everything else about this as we take it for our road test and go over everything else you need to know if you're in the market for the 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander. All right, we're going to start our road test here with the Highlander. Let's see if I take just a normal turn here out of here. There goes my phone. It's completely out of the tray. Not really usable for the wireless phone charging, but it does charge it. That's one of the things that I wanted to note, is it doesn't overheat the phone. It actually did charge it up. So if it just stayed put, I'd be happy. I suppose if you have a case that has a little bit of a material on it that make it a little bit more resistant to moving around, then that would be fine. But let's see, going around this roundabout here, yeah, it's gone. So just keep that in mind. But let's talk a little bit about the overall experience driving the Grand Highlander. Our test loop is an important one. We completed our 100-kilometer test loop. It was about 1 degree outside in 9.7 liters per 100 kilometers. As always, the US miles per gallon is below, and that's actually a really impressive number for such a large vehicle like this. The fuel economy got better as I got into town, because obviously on the highway you're pretty much using the gas system the entire time. The electric system is not being used too much. So obviously when it comes to hybrid vehicles, you're not going to get quite as good fuel efficiency on the highway. It's still better, but your best bang for your buck really is in town, when the vehicle can use regen braking, be able to charge up the battery, be able to use the electric drive system. And I've got it on my digital gauge cluster at all times, so I can see exactly what the vehicle's doing right now. All the wheels are charging the battery because we're slowing down. And then as I take off here, we're going to be using electric power to all four wheels. Gas comes on, pretty seamless. There really is no transition. I don't find that there's any difficulty transitioning from electric to the gas system to the hybrid system, and that makes sense. Toyota has really been a class leader in hybrid technology. I mean, they've had hybrids now for over 20 years, so they do have the longevity and the experience to know how to build a good hybrid system. And not only that, they've been around obviously for a long time building large SUVs, so it makes sense that a vehicle like this is so well executed, because they do have that experience. They know how to do it, and they really did do their research to figure out exactly what type of vehicle buyers here, not only in North America but globally, would be looking at for a larger vehicle like this without having to go up to the Sequoia, because this does drive great. I mean, the ride is exceptionally good. It's smooth, it's quiet, it's comfortable. My 2-hour drive home from picking this up was very nice. I just put on the adaptive cruise control, let the car take care of all of that stuff. It's not hands-free or anything like that. It doesn't do lane changing. It's just a regular adaptive cruise system with obviously full stop capabilities. So I do like that, but everything else works. I mean, there really isn't much to complain about. The 11-speaker JBL audio system is all right. I mean, it's not my favorite, but it gets the job done. You've got XM radio and Bluetooth streaming and things like that, so nothing to complain about there. I would have preferred Harman Kardon, would have been a better upgrade. Obviously, I like that better than some of the other sort of mid-grade audio systems, but it works fine. So really my only major complaint is the wireless phone charging. Maybe the rear view digital camera, again, it's just not quite there, but it's good to have, plus you just flick it off and you're back to a regular camera. I mean, everything else about this vehicle has been really good. You know, I've been pretty happy with the fuel efficiency. I've driven about 350 kilometers and I had to fill it up, and it cost me about 40 bucks. Let's say $45 to fill it up here. Gas is about $1.40 per liter, so it's a little bit higher than it usually is here in St. Thomas, but wasn't too bad overall to be able to fill this thing up to full from about a quarter of a tank. So fuel efficiency is going to be good, but you know, really the drive and ride is what you're going to be buying this for, plus the legendary Toyota reliability. But what I'm saying is, because Toyota has so much experience with hybrid technology, that it just is effortless. Like, you don't even think about it as you're driving along. And if you really wanted to, you could turn off all of the stuff that shows you what the hybrid system's doing, and then that way you would never know. Like, it drives so well. So that is really the standout feature of this, is the overall comfort, quietness, and even hitting some rougher bumps like this. You know, maybe the microphones pick it up a little bit more than it would for myself, but it's great. You know, there's really, you know, really is a smooth vehicle, and it helps being so big, right? That's one thing you do notice it. Just like any of the other larger three-row mid-size SUVs that we drive, like the Telluride, like the Palisade, you know, like the Acadia, these are all larger vehicles. You know, you do kind of feel a little bit more, but I do find that it is, you know, it's really planted on the road. I don't have to worry about handling or drive or anything like that. I've got all of those terrain modes that I can use should I need it. So, I mean, it is a well-executed vehicle from Toyota. I'm really excited that, you know, they've been coming out with some new stuff, which is really cool to be able to see things and really, you know, out there kind of things. The Toyota Crown looks really awesome, and because it's using that hybrid max engine setup from that vehicle in a obviously much larger vehicle, I can only imagine how good that would be in a small sort of car like that, because this has already been pretty good even in eco mode, which I have kept it in exclusively. This thing has been great because I could put it into sport mode and, you know, give it a bit of a rip. I mean, it sounds great for a, you know, 2.4 liter. Like, what I'm saying is, you're getting everything that you really want out of a vehicle like this. The type of buyer who's going to be looking at this wants something that has the space of a three-row vehicle that can fit 7 people if you need to, as well as the fuel efficiency. And I don't think you're going to find that anywhere else. Until other brands start coming out with more hybrid offerings, this really is the best. You've got a couple choices for the engines with the hybrid max, then the non-hybrid. There's a few options depending on what you want to do with your Grand Highlander. So great job from Toyota. This is exactly what I expected. When this vehicle came out, yeah, I knew I wanted to get behind the wheel of it, and it has met my expectations. I'm quite happy with it. So I definitely 100% would recommend this if you're in the market for one of these larger vehicles. You will not be disappointed. I know it's a little bit on the pricey side, just a little bit more than some of the competition, but you are getting that quality that comes from Toyota. This is an American-built vehicle as well. It's built down in the US, so you're getting that, as well as the legendary reliability that comes with Toyota. The build and fit and finish on this is exceptional. So again, I mean, I've been looking for things to complain about this vehicle, and really all I can come up with is the wireless phone charger, and that's such a small point that really there's nothing that I can say negative about this vehicle. So excellent job, Toyota. Definitely recommend it. If you want to know a little bit more about what Toyota has to offer in this sort of size, we did do the Highlander a couple years ago. They haven't changed it too much since we did it last, so you can check out that video at the end of this. As always, we do get back to our comments as quickly as we can, so if you have any questions or anything about this vehicle, please leave a comment below. Give a thumbs up to the video if you liked it, and consider subscribing to the channel as well, as it helps us to get to our next milestone. But until then, thanks for watching, and take care.